On today's video, we'll discuss how the release of March of the Machine may be bringing new opportunities to groups of players. People may not see it yet, but Wizards of the Coast is adding quite a bit of spice to the upcoming set March of the Machine. Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here. Thanks again for hanging out with me on the channel today. Now you're thinking, what do you mean by that? Well, the battle is one thing. The battle mechanic is one issue that will interact on many levels in the game and will be offering brewing opportunities to the player base. Not just in Standard, but also in Commander. You got to remember that. Some of these cards that have never been played before may really shake up the Commander format. But the second part of the cards, and that's what I'm going to focus on a lot more today, is going to be these dual race cards where it says Fairy Dwarf for like Torbrand and Rankle. We're going to take a look at that. But that means any card that can interact with Fairy, any card that can interact with Dwarf can now combo into decks, meaning tribal decks can now be multi-tribal when you build them correctly, and it may not happen right now. These cards are the first time we've seen them. It could take years for more of these cards to appear, but recognizing opportunity ahead of time is half the battle. Knowing which cards to buy and buy them at a lower price before they can spike up to a higher amount can save you so much money years down the road, and that's what I want to talk about. Here we go. Take a look at this first one here. This is Rankle and Torbrand. Now, what's interesting when you take a closer look, the casting cost doesn't really bother me because it's a 5 casting cost, but look at the powers. He's got flying, he's got first strike, he's got haste. He's basically Rankle and Torbrand mixed together. It's a perfect one. Fairy Dwarf. It's a 3/4 creature. It's legendary. Of course, it's a rare. And it's got a combination of their powers. Each player creates a treasure token. Each player sacrifices a creature, which is like Rankle stuff. And then if a source would deal damage to a player or battle this turn, it deals an additional 2 damage. Okay. It doesn't really focus on all red damage for Torbrand, but it's still a pretty unique combination, right? It in itself is not a horrible card. I'm not fond of the artwork, I've told you guys this, but the actual card mechanic, the power level, is actually significant. But what happens when you start mixing other cards in or other commander cards? When you take a look at Willow Priestess, a $3 card on the reserve list. It's a 2/2 for 4, in itself pretty weak, especially by today's standards, but it's its effect that people kind of take notice of, especially with more fairies coming out. Take a fairy from your hand and put it directly into play as though it were just summoned. So that means you can put Rankle and them right into play, but you know you're not going to. Rankle costs 5, the Willow Priestess costs 4, and it's green. You'd have to have all kinds of mana combinations working, so there's no guarantee this combo is going to come into play right now. And the secondary power for the Willow Priestess is target green creature gains protection from black until end of turn. So a multi 5-color deck, 3-color, 4-color deck, you might have a combination like this coming into play. There might be more combo race cards coming in with the Wilds of Eldraine. We don't know that yet, but we do know that Willow Priestess is a $4 card. And we know it probably on the reserve list with new combinations over the years, it probably won't stay that way. But now, with Rankle and Torbrand, and let's say you do make combinations work, you also can look at cards like Dwarven Pony. I know, laughable, it's a Dwarven Pony. It costs 1. It's from Homelands as well, and it's a 1/1 creature. Actually kind of typical nowadays. But when you look at it, it says 1 red, 1 generic. Target dwarf gains Mountain Walk till end of turn, which means if your opponent's playing a mountain, and depending on the format you're playing in, especially Commander, all of a sudden Rankle and Torbrand may be unblockable to one of your opponents, which means you can go in there and cause all Rankle's powers to go off. You can cause a battle card to end that much quicker. You can do stuff that people aren't thinking about because you have a Dwarven Pony mixing with Rankle and Torbrand. And this is just me thinking off the cuff. This is me spending a few minutes today and looking at this. So when you think of this now as a combination, are you telling me, honestly, the Dwarven Pony should be $1? The Willow Priestess should be $3-4, depending on the condition of the copy? And what other cards coming out can link with this? The cards that kill dragons, the cards that connect with different races that are typical races for the game, because most reserve list cards are going to focus on older cards, but it doesn't even have to be a reserve list. It can be any new card combination coming up. Torbran and Rankle will fix and go together with other fairies or other dwarves. There are other combinations. You can mix in a dwarf cleric. The way that Wizards is mixing this up is really spicy. It will offer a lot of opportunity for crazy combinations over the next few years, assuming they touch on this again, assuming they add more of these type of groupings of cards in the future. They may not right away, but generally Wizards kind of cycles around to this stuff again. Now, let's take a look at the next one. The next card I want to focus on and share with you is Invasion of Chandelier from March the Machine, and this card for a particular reason. When you take a closer look, it is 2 green, 3 generic with 4 life on it, and it's a battle card, right? And it says, when Invasion of Chandelier enters the battlefield, return up to 3 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. And there are lots of amazing cards you could be stuffing into your deck in a standard game, but really in a commander game. This card, I believe, is going to have some legs to it, some real potential for the future. And I'm linking it because there are other things that it does when it flips. And that is the Leyline Surge. When this thing changes over, it says, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Now, of course, that's a pretty powerful effect. And it mimics another card from back in the good old days, and that's Eureka. Eureka was, of course, a sorcery for 2 green, 2 other, and it said you and your opponent would take turns going back and forth until you put all the permanents you wanted to put into play. I've used it many times actually in a Super Friend deck I have to put all kinds of crazy planeswalkers out on turn 1 and 2. You know, game-ending effect. There are lots of ways, though, where these cards can combo together inside Commander games to do incredible things, and players need to be aware of it. Because this card, if it doesn't get reprinted soon enough, could see spikes in prices. It's only like, what, a $15, $16 card right now. But it's that kind of stuff that you really just want to make sure you know what's going on. Because, number one, it could have value later. But on the other hand, sometimes cards like this go nowhere. I just think it has potential to be used a certain way to really get a deck going if it can pump out just a little bit of mana or have very large creature creation inside the deck or other permanents like Super Friends. Here's some final thoughts just to give you a nugget to think about. We have Didgeridoo on the reserve list, can just put cards into play. What happens if they gave us a Minotaur mixed with, I don't know, a dragon that had haste? And you could summon it on turn 2 or turn 3 with the Didgeridoo, even though it's a massive casting cost beast, or one of these big 10/10 dinosaurs mixed with a Minotaur, or mixed with a Willow Priestess Fairy. There are so many combinations that could come down the pipe that these are cards to pay attention to, but better yet, there are low-end reserve list cards that you can connect some of these cards to. Not every combination, of course, will work with reserve list cards, but it's something to get your mind thinking about potential when you want to head things off. You don't want to look back at 5 years from now and say, I should have bought that card at $5. You kind of want to get it out of the way, at least get one copy to own for yourself. Because as new sets get released, and in this case, like a double combo kind of card packed together with so many combinations, we haven't even seen the full release of the set yet. We don't know where this kind of deck construction design could take Wizards of the Coast. If the set is well received, they may do more of this going down the pipeline. We don't know where they're at. We don't know what Aftermath will bring or Wilds of Eldraine. But you do know that some of these cards could have potential value, and some of them you might want to buy now while they're still on the cheap. It's just something to think about, something that caught my eye as I was going through. I mean, look at that Femorph Enchantress with Tom Bombadil. Think about some of those card combinations. If you haven't seen that, you should check it out. Better yet, let me show you right now. So here you've got Femorph Enchantress. Now, she's from Visions, okay? But when you take a look at the card, it's a 1/2 creature for 1 white, 1 green. Whenever an enchantment is put into a graveyard from play, draw a card. Now, take a look at Tom Bombadil. This has been mentioned a couple of times on my channel. He's a 5 casting cost 4/4 God Bard legendary creature. As long as there are 4 or more lore counters among sagas you control, Tom Bombadil has hexproof and indestructible. Whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a saga card. put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So think of all the amazing Saga cards that are like super powerful cards, and the Ephemeris is going to let you draw and keep doing things over and over and recycling, and every time one of these Saga ends, you're getting another one. Guys, this is a crazy combination that is going to be seen in Commander. Okay, she's a $15 card, $16 card. Crazy stuff that most people aren't looking at, but that's what I'm talking about. Some of these combinations happen, and the cards aren't that expensive, and it's cards that will see play. But do you want to wait till it hits 40, 50 bucks, or buy it when it's 15? Get it before the getting's good, right? Anyway, combinations, crazy cards. Let me know if you think I've missed any. I can't wait to see what people think about some of this stuff. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. Where do you think this game is going? I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day today. Special thank you goes out to all the fantastic patrons on the channel. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in each and every day and allowing me to entertain you here on the channel with daily content uploaded. Don't forget to turn on that notification bell. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Just so you guys know, for a split second, only a split second, I almost thought that the Predator cards could also work with the Femorph Enchantress. Like, she says goes to graveyard, though, and it says exile and bring them back. But for a second, I'm like, oh my god, like the creature dies. It becomes the Saga. The Saga dies, you draw a card, and then it comes back into the battlefield as the creature again. You can rinse and repeat. So, but it says exile, so it doesn't actually hit the graveyard. So, but it made me think for a second that could have gotten really scary. You know, your mind starts really reeling, and when you've had way too much coffee, that's when your mind starts going places. You're like, whoa, what? This could be insane. That's okay. Anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for making it to the end credits. Let's put a little Tom Bombadil, because I like that name. I just like it. Put that in the comment section. Yeah, I know it's not Army of Darkness. I'm going to give it a break today. We're gonna give Tom a little bit of light. That's all. All right, guys, have a great one today.